Hello, and welcome to Crafting a Successful Portfolio. I wanted to thank IIDA Southern California chapter for inviting me to present this next installment in the S.P.F 15 series, How to Curate Your Unique Story from the Point of View of a Potential Employer. My name is Chris Coldoff. I'm a principal and studio director with Gensler in our Los Angeles office. I've been an interior designer in the industry for almost 28 years, and I've had the pleasure of working for firms both large and small, and with a wide range of clients across many different project typologies. My passion as a leader is really about developing talent, and so I'm so pleased to be able to talk today about your portfolio and how you can utilize it as a tool to make a really, really strong first impression to a potential employer. Today we'll cover a couple of things. I want to start with visualizing the big picture and setting your sights on a very clear vision. We're going to talk a little bit about what design firms are looking for and give you some insight into that. We want to talk about curating your work. We want to talk about organizing and formatting your work. We'll touch a little bit on text, storytelling, and alternate media, and then we'll wrap up with a few good examples of portfolios that I think you'll enjoy. I'm hoping that the information that we share today is valuable to design professionals at any stage in their career, but I think the focus really for this particular presentation is on younger design professionals, either straight out of school or looking for that second or third job. So I think it's important that we start with visualizing your big picture, really thinking about what are you aiming for? How can your work tell a unique story about your capabilities, your talent, and your skill sets as a designer? You want to be able to use this as a tool to stand apart from your competition so that you can land that dream job. So crafting an idea about what you're aiming for, what you have your sights on, will help you achieve those goals. From the design firm's point of view, I think it's important that you get a little bit of insight into what we're looking for. So when I look at portfolios, and I've had the distinct privilege of reviewing hundreds, if not thousands, of portfolios over the course of my career, I really am looking for a couple simple things. First of all, I want to see your design process. I want to understand that you have the ability to think critically. I'm looking for an attention to detail. I'm looking for a design sensibility, and by that I mean a sophistication, a taste level. Have you looked at design problems sort of three-dimensionally and developed iterative options to get you to the solution that you're presenting to me? And I'm also looking for specific skill sets. And I think it's really important for younger designers to kind of understand that in the context of presenting your work. I'm going to have you come onto a team, and I'm hoping that you'll be an enthusiastic, participatory, energetic member of that team. And what I'm going to ask you to do most likely is participate in the design development process, leverage your three-dimensional design visualization skills, in addition to your Revit or other platform drawing skills to help support the construction drawings on a particular project. With all that in mind, at the end of the day, be confident. Remember that we want you as much as you want us. So how do we get there? First of all, let's talk about curating your work. I think what you need to do, which you probably have done already, is look at everything that you have to bring to the table. If you're a student or just out of school, you're going to have schoolwork. You may have professional work or you may have internships. And if you do, that's great. And if you don't, it's okay. You may have group or individual projects from school that you might want to include. If you've been a part of competitions, you want to consider those. You want to dig back into your project work and really pull out those early conceptual studies. Because if they're shown in the context of a project solution, if they're shown in the context of really communicating your design process, they can be a very effective piece to leverage in your portfolio. If you have non-architectural or non-design related content, like let's say photography or freehand or artistic drawing, if they tell me something unique about you and your design eye and your design capabilities, it'd be great to include it. If it's only going to tell me that you took a freehand drawing course in school, it's probably not so great to include. And at the end of the day, you really want to use a critical eye because this really is all about culling down to your best work. So presenting your work, it really is about quality. It's not about quantity. And it's not necessarily about showing things in chronological order. You want to be able to get down to your couple absolute best project examples. You want to be able to tell me through your portfolio What is unique about each project? Why are you showing it to me? What's important? What's important about it? What is the design processes you went through to get to the solutions that you're presenting? If you do have professional work, it's always good to highlight that as part of your portfolio. And in any project, you should be including, to some degree, plan views, sketches, sections, elevations, in addition to your renderings, so that I can see that you really understand space three-dimensionally. And particularly for interiors projects, the plan view really helps to orient me to what the design solution is. And as I mentioned before, showing us your design process. I don't just want to see beautiful finished renderings. I want to see how you got there. But in the context of all of this, less is more, and you really want to make sure that you're editing this down to the most concise presentation you can achieve. So once you've done that, how can you really craft a story around your projects, right? What I want to see is concise storytelling. Like, what was the design brief? What was the problem that you were given? And how did you get to the solution that you're showing me? Tell me what's important. Tell me about the steps that you went through to get to the design solution. Tell me about how you solved for the specific programmatic elements that were part of the design brief. And particularly for group projects or professional work, make sure you're articulating which parts of what I'm seeing in your portfolio you actually created or had a hand in creating. Graphics. So graphics should be supportive of your work. They should not overpower your work. And over the course of my career, I have seen many, many portfolios that have developed very elaborate logos around the person's name, have developed very sort of decorative backgrounds or frames or things like that. And unless you are really, really confident, or unless you are actually applying for a graphic design role, let the graphics be simple. Let the graphics support your story. Let the graphics support your work, not the other way around. Very simple fonts, clean layouts are always really important. Negative space can be your friend. I mean, especially in today's environment where your work is likely being viewed on a laptop screen or a tablet screen. Using negative space, using blank space to help me understand where my eye should go as I'm looking through your work is a really good element to employ. Have a friend look at your portfolio. Have them review it with a critical eye. Have a second set of eyes that's not so close to the work, that it's not so personal for, to help you get down to what your absolute best elements are. In terms of format and media, you want to be, there's a number of different ways, obviously, that you can present your work. You could be in a very simple PDF that you can, that I, as the receiving potential employer, can look through in an orderly fashion. You have great control over the order in which I'm seeing what you are presenting to me. You have control over the graphics and the fonts, importantly, which you may not have so much if it were in a PowerPoint format, which I would definitely stay away from in this kind of situation. And you may have alternate media. You may have a website. You may have that you want to include a link to. You may have animations or 3D visualizations that are in virtual reality environment, or you may have videos that you want to share. So including links to those or QR codes that will kind of make those pop up on my tablet are always good to kind of think about as well. You want to be able to create complementary pieces that can be used either together or individually. And by that, I mean your portfolio, of course, but then a resume that nicely complements it from a graphic standpoint, a work sample. And I do think having a 1 to 3 slide work sample is really, really important so that you can very easily send that along as an attachment in an email along with your resume. And then maybe there is a link to your portfolio online, or when you do get to an interview situation, you can then reveal and walk us through the larger portfolio. And then, of course, a cover letter that will accompany all those is always a nice touch. Accuracy is really important. Spell check is really important. You would be surprised how many spelling errors, how many grammar errors that I see in work coming from very, very talented, very competent young designers. But if I see spelling errors, if I see grammatical errors in the cover letter, in the resume, or in the text that's accompanying your work, what it tells me is that you don't have the attention to detail that I'm really looking for. So spell check, spell check, spell check. So all that being said, let's look at a couple nice examples. So these are all from young designers who I have hired over the last couple years. So these are all portfolios that made it across the plate, if you will. And each of them shows, I think, a different aspect of what we were just kind of talking about. So the first example is from Joanna, and Joanna took the approach to her work and her portfolio. It's just a very simple graphic format. She uses a nice clean font. It's a very simple organization. There is nothing fancy about this. And what it tells me is she's thoughtful, she's organized, and she's sort of a no-frills approach to her work. Her cover letter and resume complement each other nicely. And then when you get to her work sample, it's 3 slides that are highlighting some of her best work that slip in very nicely behind the resume. Here I see some plan views, I see some 3-dimensional sections, I see some study sketches, I see some really nice little renderings. The thing I'm missing here as a work sample is a text of some sort that is telling me what the projects are, what the projects are about. Even just a couple bullet points or a little paragraph that tells me what am I looking at? What do you want me to understand about these projects, and why it's important for me to understand this in the context of your work. The next example is from Leo, and Leo has a very different graphic approach to his portfolio. He has a number of projects in his portfolio that he presented to us, and they all kind of have this very dark, kind of dramatic format. What I like about this is that each of these projects has a little background statement, a little statement of the what the design brief was, and an articulation and description of each sort of section and what am I looking at? What is it about these little renderings or these little snippets that's important to the overall design solution? He has packaged some of the projects in this nice little 3 or 4 slide format where there's a hero image at the front, a little description about the project, and then included some critical plan views, section views, things like that, in addition to some little vignettes that help to tell the overall story of the project, which I thought was very effective, and just tells me that he's looking at things very 3-dimensionally and very thoroughly. For Derek has, I think, an interesting set of pieces that accompanied his resume and his portfolio. So here you see an example of his cover letter and his resume, which are in this sort of nice square format. Again, very simple font for the cover letter, a little bit bolder move on the resume in terms of this very graphic overlay of his work experience, education, recognition, and things like that in the black and pink. I think very effective, but bold. And for somebody who is not as comfortable as Derek is in that graphic expression, less is more, and you might want to err on the side of being a little bit more conservative. When you get to his actual portfolio, he has a number of different pieces. So there's a website that has a very similar composition to the pieces that we just talked about. There's a table of contents to his portfolio, which here he's calling his work sample, which also has a similar kind of sensibility in the square format, the pink and the white and the black. And then when you get to the actual portfolio pages, you kind of have this this very sort of different expression. This is the kind of thing where this is a risk on his part, right? Formatting his work in these, very sort of literal gallery frames is something that is definitely risky, right? It was the kind of thing when I first looked at it, I was a little honestly put off by it because I didn't really get where it was coming from. But then when I actually looked into the frames and really realized how nice the work was, it did warrant a second conversation and ultimately an interview that landed him a job with us. And then our final example here is from Julia, and I think this is also just a really nice example of a very clean, elegant format. Julia's resume is very simple, very nicely aligned, very nicely spell checked. She does have a simple logo for her name, which I think is effective and understated, which gives me a window into her design sensibility. She had a number of one-page work sample examples. This one, which included a really nice little rendering, some plan views overlaid, a little bit of a story about what the project is, and then this nice, sort of section perspective view, which compositionally gave me a really good idea, not only about the project, but about her, the way that she approaches design. And then one of the things that Julia included in her portfolio is a deep dive into a single project, which we thought was really interesting, really beautifully composed graphically, taking us through each step of the design process with reference images, with sketches, with vignettes, with photographs of design process work, whether it's from the brand standpoint, working through the form language, working through her models, her final model, and her final renderings. And on each of these slides, a couple little sentences about what's important, again, about the design process, what we're looking at, how these various stages of the design development fit into her overall solution. And then at the end, this great little picture of her presenting the work at her final exhibit. So I hope that that was helpful. What I want to do now is sort of wish you the best of luck as you take this information and you take your portfolio and your resume and your work sample and continue to cast your net. And this is a time where I think you need to be patient. You need to be persistent. It is a time where it is going to be difficult to land that first job or that second job. I'm right there with you. I entered the design profession in the midst of a recession as well. So I feel for you. But continue to cast your net. Look on the, do your research, look at the design firm's website, see what the jobs that are actually being posted for, apply for them very specifically. If you can tailor your resume and your portfolio at all to kind of aim for those specific job descriptions, that's always a good thing. Again, it's not necessary. And certainly if you know somebody at the firm that can help get you an introduction or at least get your portfolio looked at, that's always a plus. But again, patience and persistence, we will get through this. I can tell you that it is a time when most design firms are really gearing up for a much improved outlook in terms of workload, quality of projects, and just what the industry is going and the market is going just in the next couple of months. So stick with it, hang in there, and best of luck.